a lot of people, a lot of different people's methods or programs, they all have some type of fasting. But the thing is, they try to make it seem like there's some magical force or power in the fasting, which, I mean, technically, yes, but it's just a calorie deficit. What's happening is that you're eating, if you limit the time that you're eating, you're probably going to end up eating less. Okay. So the more time you're not eating, the probability of you eating less food overall in the day goes up. Okay. So why is it is it a good tool? So let me tell you, back in 2010 and 11, I did what is called the warrior diet. Okay. So the warrior diet, I forget the guy's name who came up with it. He came up with it in the early 2000s. But again, these things are just, they're all the same. They just are repackaged over time, and then they're hyped up in different ways and packaged in like sexy different ways. In today's world, it's like, oh, autophagy and this and that. What's happening is you're eating less fucking food. You're eating less food in the day. It is harder to eat 3,000 calories if you only give yourself 4 hours to eat it. That's just what it comes down to. Can you overeat? Yeah, which, you know, you can do that. But the thing is, with these kinds of things, like, so for the warrior diet, if I remember correctly, it was like one big meal towards the end of the day, and you were eating, you know, what our ancestors would have ate. So basically, you're eating meat, vegetables, and fruit. So if those are very low calorie density foods, meaning you can eat a lot and the calories are very small. So you were going to end up getting full very quickly. And so it was very difficult to eat too many calories. And so the warrior diet in 2009 worked fantastic. 2010 worked fantastic. Guess what happened? I got abs. I got ripped. I lost all the body fat on my body. So then, you know, around 2012, 11, that's the first time where, you know, not the first time, but that was the next iteration of the intermittent fasting label of this thing, where people were doing the 12-8 window, right? Or 16-8 window. So you would fast for 16 hours and you would give yourself 8 hours of eating. And here's the thing. This worked for some people, it didn't work for others. Why? Because the people who it didn't work for, they were eating high calorie foods in that window, so it was still possible to overeat during that window. Okay? So now, if you were combining some type of clean eating with that fasting, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to overeat with real foods, so you're going to be in a calorie deficit. So my message to you is like, you know, there's nothing wrong with fasting. It is very practical. If something is practical and it's effective, you should use it. And there's different phases in your life where it's going to make more sense to do some type of fasting, because if you try to like, oh, I need to eat breakfast, I need to do that, then, you know, it's you might make it more impractical and you might not be able to stay in that calorie deficit. And if something is sexy to you or attractive to you, then there's nothing wrong with using that, especially if you can get to a point where you understand the mechanism, which is a calorie deficit. Then that's fantastic, okay? And use it. Like I said, I used the intermittent fasting and warrior diet back in 2010 or 2009 to 2011, and it worked. But there were some periods where I started to eat, I was like, oh, I'm eating clean. And I would eat like paleo pancakes and like tons of eggs and butter. And I would be like, why are my abs going away? I don't get it. I'm doing the right stuff. Well, because fat is the highest calorie macronutrient. It's out of the 4 things that you can eat, the 4 categories of calories, fat has the highest calories per gram. So, I had a business at that point. I talked about this the other day, Hunted and Gathered, which was, one of the first. It was ahead of its time, but it was paleo food that it was a food truck that we used to set up in front of our CrossFit. And so we would be eating all these paleo pancakes, eggs and bacon and real foods. But I was like, where are my abs? What's happening to my abs? I'm eating healthy. So my takeaway for you is you have a couple of options here, okay? You can use fasting to your benefit because it's practical. So if you can delay into the day how long you're eating, then let's say you can delay it up to like 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. or whatever it is. Well, now you have a smaller window of time where you can overeat. Now, if you combine that with eating mostly real foods or calorie tracking, so if you combine that with calorie tracking, like it's a done deal. You could eat whatever you want and you're gonna have a ton of calories and it's gonna be hard to overeat, okay? Another variation of this, which I like, now there is a technical name for this if you wanna make it all sexy. It's called a protein sparing modified fast. All that means, that's just a fancy way to say that you're not eating anything except for protein for the majority of the day. And then as you get to your window of eating, then you'll have your other stuff, whatever it is that you want. And again, if you pair that with calorie tracking, then you could eat pretty much anything you want. And in reality, the hardest thing is to hit your protein for vast majority of people, because it's just not as ingrained, and protein is generally not the thing that big companies focus on to make food palatable or more enjoyable or taste bud friendly. Those things, the taste bud friendly foods, are generally going to be higher in fat and carbs. Not that those things are a problem, but when you pair fats and carbs, you're going to end up with super high particularly it's the fat that's really the problem, because it has 9 calories in 1 gram, whereas carbs has 4 calories in 1 gram. Okay, so that's really where the issue is with that. Again, I always have to repeat. I'm gonna always repeat the same things because I'm not gonna say things just for the sake of saying them. If you can lower your oils, your butters, and your sauces, your rich sauces like mayos and things, you will lose fat, 100%, because that's where so many calories come in. And then obviously, if you look at the oils and stuff, that's where you have like fried foods, deep fried foods and things like that. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's helpful. Use practical things, okay, to help you stay in a calorie deficit. And if something sounds attractive to you, that doesn't necessarily make it bad, but have a clear perspective and a useful understanding of what you're doing. Don't fall into this thing of like blindly listening to the fasting guy on Instagram and like, oh, fasting gives you autophagy and this and that, and it fucking blunts ghrelin and leptin and this and that. Shut the fuck up. Make it practical, okay? You don't even know what any of those things actually mean or are. That's not helping you stay in a calorie deficit. it's adding to this like complexity in your brain, which then you're still not going and doing it. Like, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you going in the kitchen and doing it? Because more information is not the problem. The problem is, why can't I get myself to do the thing that I want to do that makes sense to me? Because even if something is wrong and you do it, you now have actual experience. You now have actual evidence of yes, no, here's why. Let me try the next thing. So, anyways, as always, my hope is that I push you into actually taking action and finding out for yourself, and getting coaching or getting into a community, whether that's with me or somebody else. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, if you take action and get coaching, you will make more progress. You will get better faster. You might still have trial and error, but that time period of that trial and error is going to be shorter and shorter. Where it might take somebody 10 years to do trial and error, and they still might never figure it out, which is the case for most people, which is if you walk around, everybody is fat. But if you constantly try to get coaching and learn, inevitably you will find out and you will get there, right? So that's my hope for you. And as always, if you want me to help you, I have done this hundreds upon hundreds of times over the last 15 years for people, for myself, for clients. And whether you want one-on-one coaching or you want to join the Burrito Mafia, which is $35 a month or $49 a month, or one-on-one coaching, which is $300 a month, it will speed up your rate of progress. There's a lot of great coaches out there. It doesn't have to be me, but keep an open mind and take the action. Trust the people who you think make sense and that you can relate to, and do what they tell you. Okay, I did not book an acting job for 3 years after COVID. Okay, and I've worked since 2000, and I've been a working actor since 2010 or 11, and I was always working. For those 3 years, I was by myself.